the hidden mechanisms of activation, why your power has been waiting for the right wound to wake you. There are some of us who were never meant to live ordinary lives. Not because we are better, not because we are special in the way the ego desires, but because we were encoded with something ancient, something untamed, something terrifyingly pure. We are the ones called the dark chosen ones, not because we walk in evil, but because we are forced to walk where others fear to look. We are not chosen by gods. We are chosen by truth. And that truth is never gentle in the beginning. It comes through collapse, through betrayal, through exile, through the shattering of everything that once made sense. And that's the first secret you must understand before you begin chasing power. You do not find your power, it finds you. But only when the right trigger awakens it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
These 7 triggers I'm about to reveal are not random. They are not universal. They are coded initiators hidden in the very architecture of your life. They are not things you stumble upon, they are things that stalk you until you are finally ready to see them for what they are. Each of these triggers looks like pain on the surface, but beneath the pain is a key. A direct link to the rarest, most dangerous, most sacred forces locked inside your soul. If you've experienced even one of these, something inside you is already shifting. If you've experienced all 7, you are not just chosen. You are activated, and the world around you is going to start responding to you differently, sometimes violently, sometimes reverently, but never neutrally again. The first trigger is rejection from those you once lived to impress. There's a moment in every dark chosen one's path where the people you thought would celebrate your awakening, the ones you dreamed, would finally see you turn away. They misunderstand your silence, your intensity, your inner fire. And it cuts deep. It makes you question if you're broken, if maybe you took a wrong turn somewhere. But what's really happening here is the first veil dissolving. That rejection is not punishment, it's permission. Life is removing the scaffolding of false validation so you can no longer outsource your worth. When the ones you once lived for reject you, it forces you to find the part of you that no longer needs them. And that's when your first layer of sovereignty forms. Not the sovereignty that says, I don't care, but the one that no longer craves the illusion of being understood. That's power. And that power only awakens through the wound of rejection. The second trigger is the sudden collapse of your identity. One day you wake up and nothing fits. The job, the title, the relationship, even the spiritual practices that used to feel powerful, they all feel like costumes. You try to keep going, but your soul rebels. You feel blank, numb, confused. This is not depression. This is not a breakdown. This is the void before rebirth. It is the sacred dismantling that only happens when your future self begins pulling you out of the shell you've outgrown. And here's where most people panic. They try to rebuild the old. They try to reinvent themselves from the same place that is dying. But the dark chosen one sits in that collapse without reaching for form. We wait, we burn, we listen, because we know this isn't the end. This is the threshold. And if you can stay in that formless space long enough, you'll begin to feel something ancient waking up inside you, a version of yourself that doesn't need labels, roles, or approval. That version is your true self, and it only comes online in the ashes of the identity that was built to survive, not to lead. The third trigger is a recurring sense of being watched, even when alone. This is one of the most unsettling signs, and yet one of the most sacred. It starts slowly. You begin sensing presences in empty rooms. You feel eyes in your dreams. You feel like something is observing you, not in a hostile way, but in a measuring way. If you felt this, you're not paranoid. You're resonating, and your field is being scanned. The watchers, the initiators, the ancient intelligences that monitor the evolution of chosen souls, they do not speak in words. They speak in pressure, in atmosphere shifts, in the eerie stillness before a download. When you feel that watchful presence, don't panic. Ask, what do you see in me that I haven't seen in myself? When you truly ask that, something activates. A knowing, a memory, a code. Because that gaze isn't coming from outside. It's coming from the part of your soul that transcends this body. The part that is remembering itself. And when that part awakens, nothing about this world looks the same again. The fourth trigger is the unbearable urge to disappear. There comes a point where everything becomes too loud, too fake, too performative. You lose the desire to speak, to explain, to be included. You crave vanishing, not to escape, but to return. This is not depression. This is not weakness. This is your soul calling you inward. Because the rarest powers do not awaken in public. They awaken in silence, in absence, in the kind of stillness that terrifies the ego. When this trigger hits, do not resist it. Answer it. Go dark. Go silent. Pull back from the noise. And in that withdrawal, you will begin to hear the voice beneath all other voices. Your true voice. The one that doesn't shout. The one that transmits. And when that voice becomes clear inside you, you will never again need to raise it to be heard. That's the mark of a real chosen one. They don't perform power. They embody it quietly, dangerously, undeniably. Let me pause here and ask you something deeply uncomfortable. What have you been calling a problem that might actually be your portal? What if your exile is your initiation? What if your silence is your signal? What if everything falling apart is not chaos but surgery? Because the universe never breaks what it doesn't intend to remake at a higher frequency. There are still 3 more triggers. 3 more sacred breaking points that, if honored, will unlock abilities you didn't even know you carried. I'm not talking about intuition or healing. I'm talking about reality manipulation, energetic encryption, the ability to shift the structure of timelines with your presence alone. And these next 3 triggers are the most potent and the most dangerous. The final 3 triggers: how to withstand the voltage of your own power without destroying what you love. There comes a moment in every advanced spiritual path where power stops feeling like a blessing and starts feeling like a burden. Not because power is evil, but because it's pure. and anything pure will expose anything false. This is why so many people unconsciously sabotage their own awakening, because they're not ready to lose what they built in the dark to hold what's waiting for them in the light. But the dark chosen ones, we are not like most people. We didn't come here to be comfortable. We didn't come here to be liked. We came here to burn. To burn through illusion, through distortion, through every false copy of ourselves we inherited from trauma, lineage, and the world. And the final 3 triggers you're about to hear, if you've experienced them, are not just signs of awakening. They are signs of voltage. They are signs that your soul is preparing to run raw power through your life. And the only question that matters now is, can you hold what you're becoming without destroying what you've built? The 5th trigger is sudden, unexplained isolation at the peak of your success. One moment, everything is working. You're seen, you're heard, you're supported. And then, without warning, the floor disappears. People ghost you, projects stall, relationships dissolve. It's like the universe pulls the plug on all your momentum. And you don't understand it because you're doing everything right. But that's the illusion. You see, to the average mind, success is a reward. But to a dark chosen one, success is a test. The universe pulls you into isolation not to punish you, but to see if your power can survive silence. Can you still hold your frequency when the applause stops? Can you still trust your path when no one validates it? Can you still speak truth when it costs you connection, comfort, and control? This is the firewalk, the moment where your external world collapses so your internal world can take the lead. Most people chase attention. But you're here to chase alignment. And this trigger will show you exactly how much of your power was real and how much was just momentum. The 6th trigger is the reactivation of ancient, unexplainable memories. These come as visions, as dreams, as body sensations that make no sense. You touch a tree and suddenly feel grief from another life. You hear a sound and your body freezes in recognition, but your mind doesn't know why. You start remembering things you never lived. These are not fantasies. These are soul activations. You are not remembering stories. You are remembering codes, frequencies, contracts, missions. And these memories are not just here for nostalgia, they are here to unlock functions in your energy field that were dormant. You may start to speak words you don't know. You may write symbols you've never seen. You may feel an urge to visit specific places on Earth without knowing why. Follow all of it. The dark chosen ones often carry multidimensional DNA, and when the time is right, your field will begin waking itself up. The memories are just the beginning. What comes next is functionality. You begin to remember how to move energy, how to shift timelines, how to alter emotional states of others with your presence alone. But here's the razor edge. If you let your ego attach to these abilities, they shut down. The memories only continue if your vessel remains in service, not in superiority. So I ask you, will you remember to serve the vision, or will you try to control it? And then, the final trigger. The most intense. The one that almost always comes last. the confrontation with death, either literal or spiritual. This could be a near-death experience, a loss so profound it shatters your will to continue. A moment where your soul detaches and watches your life fall apart with no urge to fight anymore. This is not darkness. This is not depression. This is the sacred ego death. The moment where your old self dies not because it failed, but because it finished its job. And most people panic here. They try to resuscitate the old self. They try to rebuild the version of them that was just beginning to be accepted, to be loved. But the chosen ones, we let it die. Because we know your rarest power cannot enter a vessel that is still pretending to be who it was before the fire. This final trigger is the ultimate invitation not into death, but into limitless function. When you faced death and said, "I'm still here," something activates that nothing can teach. You begin to move with a kind of clarity that's not from the mind. You become a frequency of truth that no one can deny, even when they don't understand it. This final trigger rewires your system. You become immune to manipulation because you've already lost everything that could be used against you. You become sovereign because you've already died to every version of yourself that needed to be seen. You become dangerous not because you want to hurt, but because your presence alone collapses illusion. And this is when the world starts to feel different. People stare longer. Children recognize you. Animals follow you. Time bends around you. You no longer walk through reality, you bend it by walking. But here's the real question now, and it's not a metaphor. It's a contractual decision. Now that you've been triggered into power, triggered into memory, and triggered into death and rebirth, will you hold the voltage without becoming a god to yourself? Will you still be humble enough to listen? Still be human enough to cry? Still be grounded enough to serve instead of perform? Because power without presence is poison, and presence without humility is illusion. And you were not chosen to become a god. You were chosen to become a frequency of remembrance. These 7 triggers are not steps. They are not teachings. They are activators. And if you felt even one of them, your soul is already shifting. If you felt all 7, your mission is no longer optional. Your presence is now a responsibility. And the world is waiting for you not to dazzle, not to preach, but to anchor. To anchor truth, into anchor clarity, to anchor the end of the illusion that power must be earned. You are the event. You are the activation. You are the reminder. And in the next part, I'm going to show you how to live as the trigger itself, how to stop waiting for signs and start becoming the signal that causes others to awaken in your presence, just by the way you breathe, move, and speak. Thank you for asking. The path we've walked together through this script has been layered not just with words, but with frequency. Every sentence was a small initiation. Every trigger you've explored wasn't just a concept, it was a mirror. And now, having passed through the 3 layers, seeing the triggers, surviving their voltage, becoming the signal, you may feel something strange and undeniable in your body, a stillness that wasn't there before. That stillness is not emptiness. It's not silence. It's the beginning of anchored power. The kind of power that doesn't need to be rushed, doesn't need to be explained, doesn't even need to be used. It simply is, and because it is, everything around it must adjust. This is what it means to be a dark chosen one. You become a gravitational field. Not for attention, for truth. You become the vortex inside the lie, the eye inside the storm, the stillness so deep that people fall into it without knowing why. And when they enter your field, they don't just feel safe, they feel seen. Not because you told them who they are, but because your energy refused to pretend. You didn't bend to their illusions. You didn't match their chaos. You simply remained. And that remaining is the rarest power of all. Most people think awakening is about doing more, becoming more, knowing more. But we know different now. We know that true activation is about dying to the parts of us that were never real, letting go of the persona, letting go of the performance, letting go of the need to be healed, fixed, or even understood. Because when all of that falls away, what's left is not brokenness, it's presence. And presence is the ultimate technology. It doesn't just change energy. It writes new laws into the field. It alters the structure of what's possible. It reprograms the matrix silently, steadily, without effort. So if you've come this far, if you've felt the 7 triggers in your bones, if you've survived the collapse and the exile and the silence and the memory, then you are not just activated. You are ready. Not ready to teach, not ready to lead, ready to remember, ready to live in a way that makes no sense to the mind but makes perfect sense to the soul, ready to stop waiting for permission and start walking as the permission itself. And now comes the final vow, a vow spoken not with words, but with how you choose to live from this moment forward. Will you continue to shrink when truth rises in your throat? Or will you speak, even if your voice shakes? Will you continue to hide your fire behind spiritual politeness? Or will you burn with the kind of clarity that liberates everything around you, even if it makes others uncomfortable? Will you continue to chase light at the cost of your shadow? Or will you become the bridge between both so others can finally cross? Because this is the path now, not upward, inward, not louder, deeper, not faster, truer. You are no longer part of the crowd. You are no longer waiting for signs. You are no longer asking for access. You are the doorway. You are the initiation. You are the frequency event that others have prayed for, but will not recognize until they feel themselves changing in your presence. This is what it means to be a dark chosen one. You walk alone, not because you are unloved, but because you are uncompromised. You feel more, not because you are broken, but because you are tuned. You destroy illusions, not because you are cruel, but because you are coded to remember. And now, the remembering is complete. So go. Let your silence teach. Let your fire purify. Let your shadow guide. And when the world tries to make you choose between light and dark, between seen and unseen, Between power and presence, choose neither. Stand in the center and become the answer.